Everyone, Rabbi David Tal here. Welcome back to our study of Mishnayot, Masechet Berachot. We are going to begin today the 9th and final chapter, which primarily discusses laws of Berachot, which are in the category of Shevach vehoda'ah to Hashem, praise and gratitude to Hashem. We'll see many that have to deal with natural phenomenon that a person experiences and glorifying Hashem through those, as well as personal experiences that a person has, that a person then blesses Hashem for those things that happen to them in their life. So far we've seen two other categories of berachot of mitzvot, such as berachot before Kriyat Shema, before putting on talit tefillin, etc. And then we've also seen berachot hanehenin, berachot that we make on pleasure and benefit to the body through food and smell. And now we're going to talk about Birkot HaShevach Vehoda'ah, praise and thanksgiving to Hashem for various things that happen in a person's life and for natural things that they experience. Mishnah Aleph, Haro'eh makom shena'asu bo nisim liYisrael, a person who comes across and sees a place where miracles were performed for Am Yisrael in the past. Omer, he says, Baruch she'asa nisim la'avotenu b'makom hazeh. Blessed are you, God, Master of the universe, who performed miracles for our ancestors and forefathers in this place. Although the Mishnah does not record Shem, Hashem, and Malchut, it's obvious that that would be added into this. Now, what is an example of a place where miracles were performed for Bnei Israel? So if you look at Baratinura, he says, Kegon ma'aberot Yamsuf, like a person comes to the straits of Yamsuf and Nahale Arnon and the Arnon rivers, where Hashem moved the mountains to destroy the ambushers who were lying in wait to destroy Bnei Israel as they were traveling close to the Jordan and into Eretz Yisrael, Uma'aberot Yarden, the place where the Yarden split, Ve'even she'yashav aleha Moshe, and the stone where Moshe Rabbeinu sat during the Milchemet Amalek, Ve'domehem, and things of that nature. So historical sites that great miracles happened from Hashem to Bnei Israel in their time in the desert and in Eretz Yisrael, etc. Ve'anisad derabim, when we're talking about miracles of the public, kegon haneh, like the ones we just mentioned, that's when everybody has to make this beracha. That's when the Mishnah tells us any member of Am Yisrael who comes across such a place has to make this beracha. But if we're talking about a nes of a yahid, if we're talking about a miracle that happened to an individual and his own family, so then the beracha would be Baruch she'asani li nes b'makom hazeh. Blessed are you, God, Master of the universe, who performed for me a miracle in this place. And if a person had a miracle performed for him, not only would he make that beracha, but his children and his other descendants would make that beracha, and they would say, Baruch she'asa nes la'avotai b'makom hazeh, to my fathers in this place. As Baratinura notes, as I did, v'chol haneh berachot dematnitin, all of the blessings mentioned in the Mishnah, ba'u hazkarat shem u'malchut, they all require mentioning God's name and melech ha'olam. Any blessing which does not mention God's name and Eloheinu melech haolam as a sign of malchut and his kingship is not considered a valid beracha. So it goes without saying that that is here. Continuing in Mishnah Aleph, makom shene'ikra mimenu avodah zara, if a person sees a place where avodah zara has been destroyed and uprooted, the blessing is Omer. He says, Baruch she'akar avodah zara me'artzenu. Blessed are you, God, Master of the universe, who uprooted idolatry from our land. This would be only in Eretz Yisrael, which would then warrant the word Artzenu. If it was outside of Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, we would say Baruch she'akar avodah zara me'hamakom hazeh, from this place. And so we bless Hashem for getting rid of idolatry. And there is even, if you look at Harambam, a response that the people say, just as you uprooted the avodah zara from this place, so too Hashem should uproot it from all places in the world, and clarity should be brought to the world about God's oneness and monotheism. That concludes Mishnah Aleph. We move to Mishnah Bet, which now talks about blessing natural phenomena. Al hazikin ve'al hazivaot ve'al haberakim ve'al hare'amim ve'al haruchot. Omer, the blessing is Baruch shekoho ugvurato male olam. Blessed are you, God, Master of the universe, whose might and strength fill up the world. Obviously, this is a beracha that is being made on natural phenomenon which have a tremendous amount of power. So what are all of these things? Zikim Bartenura explains as a shooting star, Kochav HaNir'eh, a star which is seen, Kemoshe Potea Harakia V'yoreh Kahetz, as if the sky opens up and is shooting an arrow, Mimakom Lemakom. So it looks like an arrow that's being cast in the sky, basically a shooting star or some kind of meteor or comet. Iname, others say, Kochav Shenir'eh Kemoshe Yeshlo Zanav Aroch, a star that looks like it has a tail. Again, same thing. Right, so this is what zikin are. If a person should see some kind of a comet, a meteor, or a shooting star of sorts, he would make this beracha. Ve'al hazivaot, ziva'a, literally in Hebrew means like to shake. So zivaot are earthquakes. If a person experiences an earthquake, he would make this beracha. Ve'al haberakim, on lightning. Ve'al hare'amim, on thunder. Ve'al haruhot, and on heavy winds, hurricane-like winds. All of these things would be all of them exemplify the natural power that Hashem has through nature. Now, it's true, if you look at Bartenura says that there is another optional beracha a person can make. He says, if a person wishes, mevarech baruch oseh ma'aseh bereshit. He could also make the beracha, blessed are you, God, master of the universe, who performs all of the acts of creation. Shekol elu ma'aseh bereshit, because all of these things also fall into the category of ma'aseh bereshit. Tichtiv, as the pasuk says, berakim lamatar asa, motze ruach me'otzerotav, etc., etc. Aval al heharim ve'al gevaot, but as we shall soon see in the next clause, on mountains and other natural things and rivers and streams, that would only be oseh ma'aseh bereshit. So in the first category of the Mishnah, talking about things that both exemplify intense power by God, but are also acts of creation, a person could go either way. They could say shekaho gvurato male olam, or they could say oseh ma'aseh bereshit. In the next category, we'll see it's only oseh ma'aseh bereshit. I think practically, the way I always was taught was that on lightning, we make oseh ma'aseh bereshit, and on thunder, we make shekaho gvurato male olam. Probably because this allows a person to make multiple berachot on different things. Moving on, al heharim ve'al hagevaot, on amazing mountains and ridges, ve'al hayamim, and on streams, ve'al haneharot, and on oceans and rivers, ve'al hamidbarot, and on great wildernesses and deserts and forests. Omer baruch oseh ma'aseh bereshit. The person makes the blessing, he who created all of the different things of creation. And this is when a person sees things that not accustomed to seeing, they're not common for him, and they kind of take his breath away at that sight. We'll see that in a moment now, the Lefrakim. Rabbi Yehuda says, Haro'eh et Yam HaGadol, one who sees the great ocean. Yam HaGadol for the rabbis is the Mediterranean Sea, because the Mediterranean was their largest, closest body of water in Eretz Israel, which was essential for their living of their lifestyle. Someone who sees the Mediterranean Sea, Omer, he says, Baruch she'asa et hayam hagadol. Blessed are you, God, master of the universe, who made the great ocean, the great sea. Bizman shero'eh oto lifrakim. But this is only when a person sees it periodically. In other words, if a person goes by it every day on their way to work, so then the phenomenon is not worth blessing because he sees it every day. It would have to be that the person only sees it periodically. What is considered periodic? Bartenura says, mishloshim yom l'shloshim yom. If he hasn't seen it for 30 days, that would be considered lifrakim. And many of the halachot related to these natural phenomenon would only be if a person experienced them or saw them for 30 days. Now, when it comes to like lightning and thunder, every time a person experiences them, as long as it's on a different day, he would make the beracha. But some of the sites that we're going to talk about, things that a person would make on Birkot HaRe'iyah, would only be if he saw them every 30 days or so. Another example of this, when a person goes to the Kotel HaMa'aravi, he has to tear his clothing in sign of grief and mourning for the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. He would only do such a thing if he hadn't seen the Kotel within 30 days. If a person goes to the Kotel every day, then he does not have to tear his garments every single day over mourning such a loss. Al ha-geshamim ve'al ha-besorot tovot omer baruch ha-tov ve'ha-metiv. On rain falling and on good news that a person hears, he says, Baruch, blessed are you, God, ha-tov ve'ha-metiv, who is good and does good. Ve'al shimu'ot ra'ot, on bad news, Omer Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. He says, blessed are you, God, master of the universe, who is the true judge. If you look deeper into the halacha, Hatov v'hametiv is made for situations when a person benefits, but not only by himself, he also benefits together with somebody else. If a person, for example, Baratinura says a person who owns a field jointly with another person, beshutafut. So when rain falls, not only did he benefit, but also his partner who owns the field with him benefited as well. Therefore, he makes hatov v'hametiv. In a situation where a person hears a shimu'at tova or benefits from something like rain on his own by himself, then he would only make the beracha of shehehayanu. If a person didn't own a field at all, Bar Terura says, let's say he didn't own a field and it rained, so he doesn't really benefit to the extent that people who own fields benefit, he would still say a prayer thanking Hashem for rain. He would say the Ilupinu Maneh Shirach Chayam prayer that we say as part of the Nishmat Kol Hai on Shabbatot and Yamim Tovim. You could see Bar Terura says, Aval Kilet le'ar'a, if he doesn't have land, Omer modim anachnu lach, we are in gratitude to you, God, Hashem Elokeinu, the Lord our God, al kol tipa v'tipa shehorad tananu, for every drop of water and rain that you brought down upon us. And then he says, v'ilupino maneh shirach hayam, and he gives hoda'ah for them. So depending on a person's situation, what he owns, how much he benefits, if he's jointly benefiting or benefiting on his own, the beracha will change. Anytime bad news happens, however, the standard beracha is Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen.